All right. All right, we have officially started our webinar. I see people coming in. We're probably going to give it like a minute or two to let people join. My name is Katie. I'm here with Shape Health. Thank you for anyone who's joined our previous webinar. And today we are back with all things nutrition, a 4-part series. So this will be happening every Wednesday, same time, every Wednesday, starting today for the next 4 weeks in May. So I see people coming on. We got about 24 people. Oh, nice. I see people from the Shape community. Awesome. Well, again, I'm Katie. I'm tuning in from California. We have Sharon on here too. I'll be introducing her later. But Sharon, you're coming in from New York?
Yep, Long Island.
Nice. And not to have a cliche question, but what's the weather like?
Not so nice, not as nice as California, unfortunately, but we've had some good days this week, so I'm not going to complain.
Has it been cold?
Not terribly cold. It's, you know, a typical northeastern like spring, not really that warm, but better than the winter.
I was just telling Sharon that I am not that you need to know this, but a total baby with cold. And so California, thankfully, has been about 75. I know some people from Arizona, it's been in like the hundreds. So shout out to you guys. All right, so we're just gonna give it about 1 more minute. Setting up the Facebook Live if anyone's coming in from there. I will be going back and forth, seeing if you guys have any questions if you are coming in here with us from the Facebook Live. Just give it a couple more minutes and we'll get going. So Sharon, let's see, going over here. Oh, we got chat.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, ooh.
Yes, okay, good question. So Beth had asked us if this will be recorded for later, if you guys have to hop off. Yes, it will be. We are recording it right now. And we will, oh, sweet, and we're live. Yeah, so we're recording it, we'll post it on our Facebook, and it's gonna be up on our YouTube channel as well. Okay, so let's get started. Okay.
Okay.
So, my name is Katie, again, here from Shape Health. And today we're so excited to start our 4-part webinar series on all things nutrition. I know that I'm gonna be taking a lot of notes during this. And today our first topic is hunger, what causes real hunger and how to manage it. And our host who will be putting us through these webinar series is Sharon Sapir. She is a nutritionist who does virtual counseling with clients all over the country, Masters of Science in Nutrition and Education, and she helps others achieve their health and weight loss goals while finding a balance. So we are so excited to have her on. And before I hand it over to her, I'm going to just say we will be doing a Q&A at the end. So go ahead. I know some of you guys are already adding to the chat. If there's something on your mind as Sharon's going through this webinar, add it to the chat. We'll make sure to go over it at the end. We'll leave plenty of time for Q&A. And if we don't get to it, we'll leave our emails there and make sure to get your answers questions answered, something like that. I'm done talking. I'm gonna hand it over to Sharon and we'll get this started.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully that goes smoothly. I have a presentation here. I'm going to expand it. All right, I think we're good to go. So again, thank you everyone for joining today's webinar, What Causes Real Hunger and How to Manage It. I'm Sharon, I'm a nutritionist. Katie did a little brief bio. I have my Master's of Science, Nutrition and Education from Columbia University, and I help people from all walks of life reach their weight loss goals and better their health. And I do this through nutrition education and behavior change. And one of the many reasons that I love the Shape Scale is because it's built on the principles of behavior change, which is really the key to success. So brief outline, we'll spend a few minutes, not too long, understanding and getting the most out of your Shape Scale. Then we'll talk about what determines fat loss, then physical hunger, the importance of all 3 macronutrients and how to optimize each one, and then we'll do a recap at the end. All right, so this might look familiar to you. You're standing on a regular scale and the numbers are bouncing all around. You rarely get the same number every day. And you don't really know what to make of this information. So you celebrate when you're half a pound or a pound down, and if you're up a half a pound or a pound, it ruins your day. And unfortunately, what that does is it distracts you from behavior change. That's what causes long-term successful weight loss. It's changing your habits. So when you get distracted by these numbers, you're not focused. You often feel defeated, annoyed, and what's the point? So as you can see, this woman is stepping on a Shape-A scale, which doesn't give you the number. And the reason that it doesn't give you the number is because your day-to-day weigh-in doesn't matter. It's not valuable at all. So why isn't that number valuable? Why does your day-to-day weigh-in number not matter? Well, you might know or not know that you're about 60% water. So those numbers that are bouncing up and down, they're reflecting a water fluctuation, not a fat fluctuation. And so many factors affect our water levels. For example, carbohydrate intake. You go to an Italian restaurant, you have 2 big bowls of spaghetti and you're up 2 pounds the next day. So annoying, right? Or you go to the same restaurant and you're good, you have just fish and salad, vegetables, and you're still up. Well, that's because it was probably high in sodium. Sodium causes us to retain water. Your hydration status, right? Maybe you're dehydrated, scale's gonna be lower. Hormonal changes, really fun, right? Ovulation, right before your period, you're going to retain more water due to those hormonal fluctuations. Likewise, if you don't sleep enough, that's going to change different hormones that are going to cause water retention and meal timing. If you eat really late, you're going to retain water, and not to mention the actual food has weight, and you're going to see that on the scale the next day. So even if you know that these numbers are bouncing up and down due to weight fluctuations, I don't know about you, but they're annoying. I mean, they're still really annoying to see. So what the Shape-A scale, it gives you the only piece of information that actually matters, and that's your trend line. That's your average over time. So if you see these graphs, each one of these blue dots is a weigh-in. And what the Shape-A scale does is it takes the average over time and it sees what's happening with it. If it's going down, if you're trending down, you'll see a teal color. If it's about the same, you're averaging about the same, you'll see a green color. And if you're starting to creep up, you'll see a light gray color. What's great is that a light gray color, it's basically like an alarm, because when you figure out that you're starting to trend up, you can turn that around much more easily than if you find out a few pounds later. So it's a chance for you to refocus. It's a great opportunity to go, oh, okay, what have I been doing? What can I do better? And then turn it around. And don't despair if you're doing everything right, you're feeling like you're losing weight, and you're still seeing a light gray color. I know that could be frustrating, but the scale is not going to show you a different color until it's sure that you're on a different path. So just stick the course or stay the course, and eventually the color will change. And also make sure, if you have a Shape-A scale, to get on regularly, because the more information you give it, the more accurate it will be in helping you. Okay, so that's all about the Shape-A scale. And now, everyone's favorite topic, energy balance. Energy balance determines fat loss and gain. We know this, but it's just like the most unsexy topic ever. The diet industry knows that it's unsexy. That's why all these diets pop up to tell you, eat this, don't eat that, do it this way, time it this way. The whole point of that is just to get you into an energy deficit without actually thinking about it. It's to distract you, basically. So here you have the scales, and where your body is most happy, it's really in maintenance, because your body's job is to keep everything the same, including your weight. it's called homeostasis. That's your body's job. But if it had to choose between weight gain and weight loss, what do you think it's going to choose? Weight gain, because it's fun. You're designed to conserve extra calories a lot more. Well, you're not going to burn the extra calories. You're going to conserve them. That's how we're designed. Most of history, there hasn't been a lot of food. So any food that we can get, we conserve it. That's any extra food, rather. So it's really fun. But if you actually manage to start losing weight and you get into that energy deficit, your body is going to freak out, really, because again, it wants to keep everything the same. So you're starting to lose weight and it's going to do what it can to make you regain that weight. It's going to blare those physical hunger signals much more loudly. So speaking of physical hunger, we're gonna segue into what is it? What is physical hunger? So physical hunger stems from a hollow or empty sensation in your stomach. And it can be accompanied by growling. And the most important part of this is that it builds gradually. Gradually is key here, because there's also a type of hunger called emotional hunger. And I'm sure you've experienced emotional hunger when you smell something delicious or see something delicious and all of a sudden you're hungry. Like you've just made room for that. That's emotional hunger. We're going to take a deep dive into emotional hunger next week. Today's just physical hunger. And physical hunger may also entail lightheadedness, low energy, and grouchiness, and also being a lot less picky about what you're going to eat. Because when you're hungry, you'll like eat anything, right? What can get confusing here is that if you're lightheaded, if you're low energy, if you're grouchy and you eat, you'll probably feel better. But that doesn't mean necessarily that you were hungry. So you want to feel that sensation in your stomach. That's where the physical hunger stems from. And just one quick note about physical hunger. It's not dangerous. Just like if you're thirsty, you're not in danger of dehydration. If you're sleepy, you're not in danger of sleep deprivation. If you're hungry 30 to 60 minutes before a meal, that's a good thing. That means that you're using up your energy requirements. You're looking to be hungry before. If you're trying to lose weight and you're never hungry, you're probably not going to be in an energy deficit. But you also don't want to wait too long, because if you do, it's hard to control what you eat and how much, because we go into survival mode, right? It's like, whatever you see. So 30 to 60 minutes is a great amount of time to shoot for. Okay, how does physical hunger register? I put this really complicated infographic for you. Sorry. The point actually is just to show you that it's complicated. When I was in school and we learned about this, my eyes glazed over, because you have the hormone receptors and you have the neurons and the neurotransmitters, and you're just like, how does this apply to me? What's important here? So don't worry about understanding the science. For our purposes, it doesn't matter. But you do want to know that you have stretch receptors in your stomach. And that's why when you eat high volume foods like fruits, vegetables, or heavy foods like soups, you're going to feel it. That's good, because that's one of the signals that you need. You also have hormones in your stomach and blood that register nutrients, and you also have the actual nutrients circulating in your blood that also give your brain signals that you're fine. You can turn off those hunger signals, you're satisfied, you're satiated. But when I say nutrients, what do I mean? What are the most important nutrients for you to take in so that everything registers? We're talking about macronutrients: protein, carbs, and fat, all three. So in the next few slides, I'll be talking about each one, the amounts that you want to shoot for, and which ones. So here we have protein. Okay. I like to get really poetic with protein and say that it stokes the embers of your metabolism. It really does. I mean, it's like ammo. You want protein. And for general health, you don't need a lot of protein. Obviously, we don't have a protein deficiency in this country, because you don't need a ton of protein for general health. But if you're trying to optimize lean body mass, and you are, you want to shoot for a higher amount of protein. So what's a higher amount? Generally, about 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight is ideal. So as an example, if you weigh 100 pounds, you're going to shoot for 70 grams to 100 grams of protein per day. If you weigh more, that number is going to be higher. And that's probably more protein than you're used to. So how do you get that much protein? Well, I like to use my hand as a reference, my palm. Your palm is about 3 to 4 ounces of protein. That's about 20 to 30 grams of protein. So including at least a palm full of protein in each meal and half a palm to a palm in each snack should get you there. Or if you're talking about like cottage cheese or Greek yogurt, it's like a cup, right? You can't really do a palm. And on the bottom here, I have examples of protein, because sometimes when you think of protein, you're thinking chicken or fish. You have options. You have options. Some are more convenient than others, like tuna or salmon in a packet is super convenient. I love Greek yogurt and cottage cheese. I probably said those two foods like 10 times already, just because they're so versatile, and protein powder too. When you're thinking about red meats like beef or pork chops, you want the leanest versions of them that you can find generally. So that's protein. When you're hungry, a great habit to get into is, what's my protein? Start from there. Pick your protein and then build out. And once you get into a habit of thinking like that, you'll find it's a lot easier to get that protein in. Okay, carbohydrates. First, don't be scared of carbs. I know they get a bad rap, and the right carbs are going to be your friends. So the two things with carbs is getting the right carbs and also amounts. We're going to talk about amounts because that really does vary, but you might not know that the right carbohydrates, they help your gut microbiome. And we know now more and more that a healthy gut microbiome affects many aspects of your health, many of them. So you want, in your gut, you have good bacteria and bad bacteria, and the right carbs help the good bacteria grow. And unfortunately, the not right carbs, and I'll talk about what right and not right is, they don't. They might even encourage bad bacteria to grow. So you want the good ones. Now, in terms of how much, well, this is tricky, so I'll try to explain as best as I can. Well, first of all, when you're eating a meal, if you make a fist, that's about a portion of a starchy carb. A starchy carb is any carbohydrate apart from a non-starchy vegetable. So cucumbers and tomatoes and celery, and I mean, if you Google non-starchy carbs, you'll get like a huge list. Anything aside from that is a starchy carb. And if you're doing, you can do a fist or you can do a quarter of your plate. That's generally good for everyone. However, some people need fewer carbs. If you're, let's say you're a woman in your 40s and 50s, you're going to need fewer carbohydrates than a young guy in his early 20s. It's unfortunately, a not so fun fact of life. If you're very active, you're going to need more carbohydrates than if you're sedentary. That you have to just play around with that. But when you choose your carb, try to choose carbs that come from the whole food categories, like oats and quinoa, sweet potatoes, squashes, legumes, sprouted bread. Those carbs contain fiber and nutrients. And why is it important for hunger? Well, when you eat a different carb, right, the refined, highly processed carbs, they dump a whole lot of sugar into your bloodstream. And what does your body do? It releases a whole lot of insulin. The insulin clears the sugar out, but it always overshoots. And because it overshoots, you're left with too little sugar in your blood. And that makes you tired. And it makes you very hungry. And that part is annoying because it's not a true hunger. It's not a you've used all your energy requirement hunger. It's like a trick hunger. And then you eat more and you crave the simple carbs because they give you that burst of energy really quickly. So when you eat carbs from whole foods, you have that fiber that slows everything down so that you're not dumping a lot of insulin and your hunger remains a lot more stable. Sorry, I know I skipped past the non-starchy vegetables. You can eat endless amounts of that. Endless. I mean, nobody gained weight from non-starchy vegetables and they fill you up. But I'm really talking about the starchy ones. Now, I would be totally unrealistic if I said, hey, I don't want you eating pretzels or chips or cookies or cakes or any of that ever again. No, they're in our life, for better or for worse. They're here, right? And nothing magical happens when you eat a chocolate chip cookie. It's not like, oh, you ate a cookie and now you're getting that huge release of insulin. No, amount matters. Amount matters a lot with these types of carbs. So if you're eating a cookie, but you're also eating maybe chicken and you have some sort of healthy fat in there and a vegetable, it's not going to have the same effect on your blood sugar and subsequent hunger than if you had 10 cookies alone. So there is a way to include them when you include them. There's nothing magical about them, but for the most part, you want to try to get your carbs from the whole food sources. And I see lentil pasta down there. If you guys haven't tried it, it's a good one. All right, so last but not least, fat. Fat, I'm sure you know that good fat is good for you, the bad fat is bad for you. Good fat is good for you because it increases your good cholesterol, your HDL, and it decreases your bad cholesterol. And we need it. We need it to feel full. We have receptors for it. They're looking for the fat. But fat is also higher in calories than carbs and proteins. So we don't need a lot of fat. How much fat do we really need? Well, they found that about 15 grams per meal is optimal, but you're probably not counting your grams of fat per meal, and I don't blame you. So I have some examples listed of what are examples of about 15 grams of fat are, and you'll notice that towards the bottom of the list, I have eggs and chicken. So some proteins already have fat in them. So if you're taking these proteins and you're adding cooking oil to it, well, now you definitely have enough fat. You don't have to add additional fat to that meal to get the optimal amount. Have to keep that in mind. And the good fats, I love fat, by the way. It's good for your hair, it's good for your skin, it's just good for everything. Are avocado, olive oil, the fatty fish. I have sardines here. I think they're really gross with the skin and the bones, but they have them without skin and without bones, and they're really, really convenient. So if you haven't tried skinless, boneless sardines, I recommend it. And then you have the good fats from the chia seeds and the hemp seeds and the nuts and the nut butters. Those fats are great. You don't need a lot of them, but you do need some. You want to minimize the fats that come in processed baked goods, the margarine, the Crisco, the fried this, the fast food, the fatty cuts of beef. You really want to try to minimize that as much as possible. If you have some, is it the end of the world? Absolutely not. We function by the 80-20 rule. 80% should be mostly healthy from whole foods, and 20%, fun foods. Your body functions on an average. So don't ever feel like you failed if you have something that you're trying to minimize. It's really what you do most of the time that matters for your health. So I love the crowding out method, which means adding food, because when you add fiber and protein and healthy fats from whole foods, you automatically eat less of the stuff that you don't want to without even thinking about it. And it's more fun to add food than it is to take it away, especially now. I'm sure you've had a lot of things taken away from you recently. If your kids are home, then you've had me time taken away. Like, you really have to take anything more away? Probably not. However, sometimes you do have to say no to certain foods, And sometimes it's not the physical hunger that's driving you, it's a different hunger, it's an emotional hunger. We'll be talking all about that next week, so I hope you join us for that. But if you can manage your physical hunger by eating the right foods, then you're more than halfway there. So your physical hunger checklist is eat protein at every meal and snack. Remember the POM. And also, when you're hungry, what's my protein? First thing that you go to. Second, choose fibrous carbs from whole foods over refined carbs from processed foods as much as possible. This will have a really great effect on your appetite and making sure that you don't get that trick hunger, that hunger when you're not really hungry, right? And make sure that you have some healthy fat in there. Not too much, but you want some of it in there. So yeah, that's my presentation on hunger. I hope you got some good points. Next week, we will be talking about emotional hunger, flip side. After that, my favorite kitchen staples, and after that, resiliency.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sharon. And she also put down there a way to
Oh yeah.
You go, yeah.
Sorry, we'll be doing a Q&A. If I don't get to your question, feel more than free to email me. I'll help you however I can. And you can also find me on Instagram.
Yes, perfect. So we are going to be doing Q&A. Go ahead, and if you have any questions, now is your chance to pick her brain. Go ahead and enter it into the Q&A. There's also a chat option. Yasmin said, thank you. You are welcome. We're also on Instagram Live, and I'll be checking those chats as well. Okay, while we're waiting for questions to come in, I have a very one I wanted to ask. So I know that sardines are like amazing in omega-3s.
Yes.
How do you eat them? Do you just eat them straight up, or do you have some secret recipe for like how to eat them? I've always been so curious.
Well, I get the skinless, boneless ones because I'm so squeamish. Otherwise, like the crunch of the bones and the skin will not my style. No. But when you have it skinless and boneless, I like to mash it up with a fork, and sometimes I add a little bit of mayo, sometimes, and mustard. The mustard seems to cut through somehow. And it gives it that creamy texture without adding too many calories. And then I often will toast a slice of Ezekiel bread and spread it on that. And it's like the most filling, satisfying meal.
That's awesome. I mean, I guess you could have a tuna as well.
Yeah.
And you mentioned salmon in a packet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The omegas.
Yes.
We have someone in the Q&A, Barb. Thank you for commenting. This made a lot of sense. Protein for every meal and snack, I think, is a great idea, and certainly going to work on incorporating them. Awesome.
Yay.
Thanks, Barb.
I'm so happy. Yeah, usually when I get a client, I'll look over their initial food log, and it's almost always too low in protein. So I see that across the board. We don't crave protein foods. I don't know about you, but like, I'm not like, oh, I'm craving that chicken right now. I'm like, no, I'm craving those cookies. But you kind of have to force yourself. And then once you're in the habit of eating more protein and centering your meals and snacks around it, it just becomes habit, right? This is all about habit at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We got another one in from Wilma. Great question. How do I treat beans when it comes to protein? Do I still use the palm size measure?
That's a really good question. So beans have protein in them. They're not as high in protein as we'd like them to be. Lentils are a little bit higher. You would probably need 2 palms worth. I also count beans as a complex carb. So it's a twofer. You get your protein and you get your complex carb. But I would do 2 palms worth or 2 cups worth probably. Well, unless you actually do a cup of lentils, gives you a good amount. I don't remember the actual grams, but you definitely need more than a palm size amount to get a good protein count with them.
Awesome. Oh, and then we got a follow-up. What about chickpeas and hummus?
Yeah, same thing. Same thing. I hate raining on people's parade with this because chickpea and hummus, it's so good for you. It's so nutrient rich, but it's not that high in protein. It's not a great source of protein. So it can be part of your protein count, but I wouldn't rely on it for all of it.
Awesome. Okay, and we're continuing this plant-based train from Rose.
Okay.
What are the best sources of plant-based protein? I eat meat, but do some meatless days and need some ideas. I feel you, Rose.
Okay. So I like pea protein a lot. I don't know if she's trying to avoid dairy completely. Is she like vegetarian or really wants to be plant-based, so no dairy? Because if you're not doing dairy, then yes, you're going to do pea protein, tofu, tempeh, seitan. Those are all fine. I wouldn't overdo it on soy. It's one of those that I'm just kind of like, I don't know how I feel about it. There's too much research in either direction. So I say just be moderate with it. You could do lentils, like a lentil soup usually has like a good 20 grams of protein or so. So lentils are high in protein. A lentil pasta will have about 14 grams per serving. So those are good. You could also do a hemp seed. So a hemp seed has about 10 grams of protein for about 170 calories. That's okay. That's not the greatest protein to calorie ratio, but if you're just doing plant-based, take it. It has those really good fats in it too.
It looks like she does eat dairy too.
Oh, okay. So if you eat dairy, I highly suggest believe it or not, because I think these get a bad rap, whey protein isolate. Not the concentrate. The concentrate might make you a little gassy or a lot gassy. I stay very far away from whey protein concentrate, but the whey protein isolate digests really well. It has amino acids that, especially as women, we need, like leucine. You get about 20 grams of protein for 100, 110 calories. So it's a great protein to calorie ratio. And it's easy. I mean, sometimes if I'm looking at a meal and it's lowish in protein, I will just take some protein powder, mix it with water or almond milk, and drink it as my beverage. And it's a great way to up the protein. Also, Greek yogurt and cottage cheese, if she can handle them, they are superb sources of protein. And they're so versatile. You can add some nuts if you're doing like a fat-free dairy and you need some fat, add half a serving of nuts. You can add fruit to it. You can add vegetables to it. Vegetables with cottage cheese, very delicious. So you have options. You don't have to eat meat.
Lots of options.
Yeah.
We do have another follow-up to that, which is on the yogurt topic. Barbara had asked, I like yogurt, but most have a lot of sugar. I found 2 good brands, but any other suggestions would be great for yogurts that are low in sugar.
Okay, so my advice with yogurt is get the plain yogurt and add your own sweetener. So whether that's stevia, like stevia drops you can add in, or if you want some other sweetener, even if it's sugar or honey, you're probably going to end up with less sugar than if you buy a sweetened yogurt. There's also some companies like Chobani does a less sugar yogurt, which has lower sugar in it. But I find that you get the most bang for your buck in terms of protein to calories with the plain yogurts. So get those and then dress them up.
I love doing that. I throw in like nut butters or
Yeah.
like some berries. It becomes this creative little bowl by the end of it.
Exactly.
We have a question from Vicky. Do nut butters fall into both protein and fat category?
Not really. Not really. Nut butters, they have this health halo of a great source of protein. And it's true, they have some protein, but if you really think about it, you're getting about 7 grams of protein for about 200 calories of a nut butter. When you're thinking of what's a protein food, you actually want about 10 to 20 grams of protein per 100 calories. So 7 grams of protein for 200 calories versus you should really be getting about 20 grams of protein at the minimum for 200 calories. It's really more of a fat. It will contribute to your protein count, but not by enough. I don't consider them good sources of protein, unfortunately, because they're delicious.
So good. I know you mentioned the protein as the palm, carbs as
Mhm,
the fist. So would
mhm.
fat be, is it that the thumb?
Yeah, I mean, that's what you see in those pictures. I have always had a hard time like
Yeah.
using my thumb as reference, so I don't. Actually, with fat sources, I personally, and I'm not saying everyone has to do this, but I'll often weigh it out on a food scale because it's really easy. For example, you put a jar of peanut butter on a food scale, you turn it on, it's at 0, and you take out a spoon of it, and I'll show you like -15. So that's about 15 grams, and that's about 1 tablespoon. So for me, that's actually really easy and quick. But otherwise, I just try to eyeball it. But it's tricky. Eyeballing fat is very tricky because even a little bit of extra, it's so calorie dense that you can be over with your, energy more than you'd like.
Mm,
I wish the thumb thing works.
I know it's, yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Okay, and we are here with Barb. Can you repeat the number of grams of protein
Sure.
calories that is good to shoot for?
Yes. So if you're thinking about a protein food, you're looking for 10 to 20 grams of protein per 100 calories. So if it's 150 calories, your minimum amount of protein that it should have is 15 grams of protein.
That's so interesting. I'm writing that down too. I'm like, wow, good to know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is like official, but that's just what I go by when I assess food for myself in protein.
Yeah, I feel like that is what makes it more applicable, is especially when it's like the fist, the palm, things that
Yeah,
the less work, the easier to make it
totally.
happen. And we're all in
Right.
here. Okay. Vicky said, you mentioned sprouted bread. Can you talk about that a little more?
Oh my gosh, I am like the unofficial spokeswoman for sprouted bread. Ezekiel, if you're out there, hire me. I love sprouted bread. For a few reasons. Nutrition, you can't beat it. I don't even consider it really a bread because what they do is they take the grains, they sprout them, they mush them together, and they call it bread. And when you sprout these grains, they become more bioavailable. That means that you absorb the nutrients up to 6 to 10 times more than if you were just eating a regular piece of bread. So you're getting all of that nutrition so much more. So that's nutrition. They're also very low glycemic because they have natural fiber in them and natural protein too. Actually, Ezekiel bread is a complete protein, which is awesome, and that helps steady your blood sugar, so you get that really even energy. And the third reason I love them is just because they're so practical. You keep them in the freezer, and when you want them, you take them out and you toast them. You have to toast them. If you don't toast Ezekiel bread, you will never speak to me again because it's like not edible. But and Ezekiel is just one of the companies. It's just the one that I find everywhere. But there are other sprouted breads. They're usually in the freezer section, unless you're a Trader Joe's. Then they keep them out, and they're very filling and they taste good. People like them. I thought for sure when I first started telling people about these breads that they would hate me, but people really like them. So now I talk about them all the time.
Yeah, I would like you said, they're in the freezer section. They do mold pretty fast if you leave them out. Isn't that right?
Yeah, super fast because they don't have any preservatives. They're so natural. Like when we talk about processed food, it's the least processed bread that you can get. It's
Yeah,
great.
it's like almost you almost want like you want that. You're like, oh, okay, that means it's really fresh if it's
Yeah,
processed.
it's real food.
Cool. Crazy. Oh, Mia, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but Mia also had noted that they have for Ezekiel low sodium ones and raisin and English muffins.
Yes. So I've only tried the low sodium one once and I will never try it again because it's not very tasty. I hate to say it, if you're trying to cut your sodium down, cut it somewhere else, not on the low sodium Ezekiel bread. The raisin one is delicious. It's delicious. It's a little bit higher glycemic because of the raisins, but if you're not too worried about that and you just want something that tastes delicious, recommended. And yeah, they have the buns. So they have buns, I believe, and English muffins. And a funny story, when I was pregnant with my first, I was making Ezekiel English muffin grilled cheeses like every day. Like I lived off of that. So
Ooh, that sounds so good.
yeah, it makes a good grilled cheese.
That's awesome. All right, we are still here. If anyone else has some questions coming in, I do see one from our Facebook Live.
Cool.
This one is from Annalisa. She said, can you talk about PCOS and weight gain? I know it mimics diabetes with the insulin resistance. What tweaks would you make or your advice for eating?
So I would keep my advice actually about the same. This type of way of eating, managing hunger optimally, is really good for PCOS because it's all about keeping your blood sugar very, very steady. And that means having protein every time you eat, means maximizing those healthy carbs from whole foods. Maybe not going as much with them. So finding kind of what's the amount that makes you feel full. I guess the minimum amount that makes you feel full that you can get away with. Non-starchy carbs galore, and having a good moderate amount of healthy fat. That's, from what I understand, the best way of eating for people who have PCOS. You want to avoid those highly refined carbs as much as possible.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, we're still waiting in. We're here if anyone has any more questions for Sharon. She is a wealth of information, and I'm enjoying all the questions that you guys have and getting her responses to them. I know that when I was watching your talk, something that really stood out to me is how you said the difference between your hunger cues. Real hunger builds gradually versus the emotional hunger. I can totally relate to that, where it's like you smell that thing and you're like, well, I know I'm really hungry. Like you convince yourself like it's time to eat.
Yeah, and you get real physical reactions in your body that are hunger. So, but it's not a real hunger. It's quite annoying and confusing. Same for like, you can be so stuffed from a meal, but then dessert comes. It's the same type of thing. Like I can always make room for dessert because we get these visual cues and then these reactions happen. But yeah, physical hunger is its own. You're really looking for that hollowness in your stomach, some sort of sensation there stemming from your stomach. And it will build gradually. So as soon as you feel like, oh, I'm starting to get hungry, look at the clock, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, you're probably going to get hungrier by that point. And that's a real physical hunger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was gonna be my follow-up question was like, okay, once you start feeling it, how long do you give yourself to know, like, is it the smell next door or am I actually?
Right. Yeah, you want to probably at least like 10, 15 minutes. If it's a real hunger, it'll still be there. And I know for me personally, I used to be really scared of being hungry. Like I would just, I think something's gonna happen. Like I always had food on me, and I still do usually have something, but I won't reach for it as much because now I understand that it's really being hungry for 30 minutes, an hour. It's actually good. It's good. You just don't want to get to the point where you're feeling out of control, and then you just want to eat everything and whatever's available. But it's good to make friends with some hunger, that physical hunger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we've all experienced a few hangry episodes.
Oh yeah. It's not pretty.
No.
Not pretty at all.
We got a question here from Lisa. What are your thoughts on protein drinks and which would you recommend? That's
a great question. Okay, because protein drinks really run the gamut from great to like, ugh, you know? And I like, by the way, I know you didn't ask this, but I'm gonna give you my spiel anyways about protein, is I like protein drinks much more than I like protein bars. Most protein bars are glorified candy bars. They have more protein, but they usually have just yucky things in there, and they're highly processed. And most importantly, they don't take up a lot of room in your stomach, so you don't feel full, and you end up relying on them all too easily for food because we just get lazy. Protein drinks, on the other hand, at least they're activating those stretch receptors, right? Because it's heavy, and they don't taste in general as good, so you're not as likely to rely on them. I like simple. When it comes to protein drinks, go as simple as possible. So that means the protein itself, whether it's a pea protein, a hemp protein, a whey isolate, and a natural sweetener, and then you're mixing it yourself. Now, there are some brands that I like that are already pre-made. So for pea protein, I like the only what you need, the OWN shakes, because they have just real food in them. What I don't love are the ones with like 50 ingredients of weird things that they're adding into them. You know, are they terrible for you? Probably not, but I just like to stick with simple. I feel like you can't go wrong with a simple protein shake. And you're looking for about 20 grams of protein per 100 calories. So if it's a lot lower than that, then there's some other stuff in there and you may or you may not want them. It might be a meal replacement shake. Maybe you don't need the meal replacement shake, you just want the protein. So simple. Sorry, that was a long spiel for like
No, that was great. There's so many
Okay.
proteins out there. I agree. It gets really confusing. And on the protein note, Jennifer had asked, and do you recommend mixing the protein drinks with water or nut milk?
So I mix them with water, but that makes a lot of people gag. I actually know a Jennifer who gags when I mix it with water and I put it on my stories. So it might not be for you. An almond milk or an oat milk, there's a lot of love for oat milk lately. I actually haven't, I don't know if I've tried it, but I featured it and I got so many messages saying how much people love oat milk. Fine, that could be a great milk to mix it with. It'll give it a creamier consistency. It'll make it more palatable. And those milks are generally on the lower side with calories. I know almond milk is about 40 calories a cup. Oat milk that's unsweetened, I think is about 80. So yeah, mix it. If it makes it easier to get down, then for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely team nut milk, water. Ooh,
Yeah.
I did it, but that would be tough. I love my creamy things.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I have the taste standards of a prisoner, so I have to remind myself that it really stems from laziness. I probably conditioned myself that way.
I know. I get that. All right. Well, I think we'll probably wrap it up here shortly. If anyone has that question, definitely ask it now. Again, we will be here weekly, 12 p.m. Central Time, talking all things nutrition. While we wait for the, oh wait, we got one. From Barb. I like to add some nut milk, but then add water to my protein shakes. So is it like half and half? I like to add some nut milk, but then add water to my protein.
Sounds like it.
Huh.
Maybe water.
Just like
Yeah.
the cream in there.
Yeah, because then you're diluting it, so you're getting fewer calories, but maybe you're still getting enough creaminess that you can stand it.
Yeah, I could see how all nut milk could make your stomach, like some people can't do lattes because it's just straight milk. And
yeah, I can't.
Yeah,
Can't do it.
Swell up.
Yeah.
Don't do that before a run. Okay, Cecilia said, not a question, but thank you ladies so much for this. So helpful and amazing.
Thanks for being here, Cecilia.
Yeah, we so appreciate that. All right. Oh, and she replied, I usually just add a little milk and then dilute it with water. So more of 1/3 milk, 2/3 water.
Oh, okay. That sounds like a great way to still get the creaminess, but not add too much energy. Or I've been saying energy instead of calories. It's not the C word. We can say calories. Yeah, that seems like a good way.
But I do like energy. Like it makes more sense to me than calories because like you were saying, if we were like maybe on a track team running every day, we would need more energy and calories versus maybe we now work 8 hours a day sitting. We're not going to need as many energy. Thanks.
true. It's true. And unfortunately, when we're sitting all day, we often eat because we're bored. So
Yeah.
we'll be talking about that next week as well.
Ooh, bored eating.
Board eating.
All right, well, while we wait for any last questions, why don't you go ahead and just touch a little bit on what we'll be hearing next week and just some highlights for people to look forward to.
Sure. So we'll be talking about the background, right, of emotional eating. Why does it happen? Why do we eat when we're not hungry? But then even more important, I think, are how to take steps that you can implement right away to get on top of it, to conquer it, to not be ruled by your emotions and food, to really take control. So I'm excited to delve into that next week. It's a big thing for a lot of people. And I think to be human is to be an emotional eater. So when we call ourselves emotional eaters, it's like, well, just call yourself human. That's what you are. It's normal, it's natural. We're built this way.
It's so true. And I know a lot of people who are now having work from home are adjusting to that as well. Like working near your kitchen is almost just like asking for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes we
Sure, I feel that.
Okay, just double checking. I think we're good on questions. If you guys have any more, we did add her Sharon's email to the bottom of this, and we will be recording it if you need to rewatch any of the tips, or we did record it and we will be posting it shortly after. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Sharon. That was
Oh my gosh. Thanks for having me. This was really fun. And thank you for all your questions.
It was so much fun. I was like, I have tons of questions. And thanks for everyone from our Shape community, people who aren't Shape owners yet, but still came and joined us. We're so excited to have you. And we'll be tuning in next Wednesday again, 12 p.m. If you guys registered, you should be getting an email invite and reminders. And that's it. All right. So thanks, guys. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you so much.
Next Wednesday. All right.
Good.
Bye.
Bye.